History is packed with powerful people, right? But how many can say they literally built a nation from the ground up? Today, we're talking about one of them, Cardinal Richelieu, the man who designed modern France. Think about this question for a second. In the 17th century, France was a total mess. We're talking rebellious nobles, deep religious divides, and powerful enemies on all sides. So how on earth do you take that chaos and forge a superpower out of it? Well, it turns out one man had a plan. His name was Cardinal Richelieu. Now, he wasn't the king, but for almost 20 years, he was the real power behind the throne. His goal was simple and incredibly ambitious: make France the #1 power in Europe. And his plan started with a pretty unexpected climb to the top. So how does a church guy end up becoming a nation's ultimate political player? Well, Richelieu's journey was anything but what you'd expect. Get this, the man who would become Cardinal Richelieu, he wasn't even supposed to be in the church. Armand Jean du Plessis was born into a noble family and was all set for a military career. But his family needed the income from a church position, so he switched gears. And it turns out he was really, really good at it. He was smart, ambitious, and quickly went from being a bishop in a tiny town to impressing everyone at court. By 1624, King Louis XIII knew this was his guy and made him chief minister. From that day on, Richelieu was basically running France. So, once he's in charge, Richelieu has some huge problems to deal with back home. France was, to put it mildly, a total mess, and he knew he had to clean house before he could even think about building an empire. His #1 goal was to centralize power. He wanted everyone to know that the king's word was law, period. But two major groups stood in his way. First, the super powerful nobles, and second, the Huguenots, who were French Protestants with their own armies. All right, first up, the nobles. These guys were basically acting like little kings in their own regions, ignoring royal orders and starting rebellions whenever they felt like it. Richelieu's solution was direct and brutal. He ordered their personal castles torn down. No castle, no place to hide and plot. Then he sent his own loyal officials, called intendants, out into the country to enforce the king's laws directly, taking power away from the local lords and bringing it back to Paris. Okay, nobles dealt with. Next on the list, the Huguenots. Now, they weren't just a religious group. They had their own fortified cities, their own armies. It was like a separate country inside France, and Richelieu knew that had to stop. He personally led the royal army in a brutal, year-long siege of their main fortress, La Rochelle. After it fell, he took away their forts and armies. But, and here's the brilliant part, he let them keep their religion. He didn't want a civil war over faith. He just wanted their loyalty. So, with France finally getting its act together at home, Richelieu looked outwards at the rest of Europe. And what he saw was a continent on fire, caught up in a massive conflict called the 30 Years' War. For him, that wasn't a problem. It was an opportunity. See, France was basically boxed in, surrounded on all sides by lands controlled by one super powerful Catholic family, the Habsburgs. Now, you'd think, hey, they're all Catholic, they should be friends, right? Wrong. Richelieu saw the Habsburgs as the single biggest threat to France, and he was going to do something about it. Now, to get what he does next, you absolutely have to understand this one core idea. It's a French phrase, raison d'etat. It literally means reason of state, and the idea is simple but revolutionary for the time. A country's own interests, its security, its power, are more important than anything else. More important than alliances, more important than tradition, even more important than religion. So using raison d'etat as his playbook, he rolled out this genius 3-step plan. Step 1, identify the enemy, the Habsburgs. Simple enough. Step 2, and this is where it gets wild, he starts secretly sending money to their enemies, who just so happened to be Protestant countries. I mean, think about that. A top cardinal in the Catholic Church is funding Protestants to fight other Catholics. It was unheard of, but it all came down to step 3. Always put France first. By keeping the Habsburgs busy fighting someone else, he made France stronger. But Richelieu was playing 4D chess. He knew that true, lasting power wasn't just about having the biggest army or the most gold. It was also about culture, about building a brand for France and making it the coolest, most prestigious nation in the world. And that brings us to the year 1635. This is a big one, because this is the year he turned something we use every single day, language, into a tool of national power.
This is when he founded the famous Académie Française. Its whole job was to standardize the French language, to make it the official, polished language of power and culture. But he didn't stop there. He built incredible palaces. He poured money into rebuilding the Sorbonne University in Paris. He was basically turning Paris into the intellectual and cultural capital of the world. Why? Because he believed a great nation needed a great, unified culture.
Okay, so let's step back. After all these ruthless moves, these brilliant strategies, these cultural projects, what's the bottom line? What did Richelieu actually leave behind? Well, to put it simply, his legacy is gigantic. He and King Louis XIII took a country that was falling apart and completely transformed it. They created a centralized, powerful European empire that would dominate the continent for the next 150 years. But, and this is a huge but, we have to be honest about how he did it. This success was built on a foundation of pure ruthlessness. He wasn't a hero in a fairy tale. He created a massive spy network, and if you crossed him, I don't care if you were the king's own mother, you'd be exiled or worse. For Richelieu, the state came first, and no one was safe if they threatened it. So that's the big question, isn't it? Was he the brilliant architect of modern France, a visionary who built a nation? Or was he a cold, calculating mastermind who would do anything to win? And the real answer is, he was both. His story is the perfect example of just how messy and complicated power really is.